by you quoted you referred to the debate that was held down here at Connect and the others. Among them was Professor Downer, who teaches palliative care to medical students and is also high up in the Dying with Dignity organization. There was no opportunity for questions from the audience, so I had to bite my tongue. But he repeatedly told the audience about euthanasia. This is going to affect only a very few people. Look around the world, it's going on everywhere, and the numbers are stable, they're not rising.
Right.
I myself was in the Netherlands a year ago, July, to research. The numbers are skyrocketing.
Of course.
Now, so in charity, I thought, well, he's not lying, he must be misinformed, but would he be lying? What's going on among them?
Okay, thanks, Terry. So the question was, first, is there a, what is the extent of the conspiracy? And secondly, what about James Downer? I'll take that one first. From what I've heard, James Downer is a competent and highly intelligent person who does palliative care, and I believe some internal medicine or intensive care or something. But in any case, because I've heard that he's a smart guy, it baffles me that he would suggest that this is just going to apply to a very small number of people. And anyone with a rudimentary understanding of our rights-based society and of our Charter of Rights and Freedoms knows that with a good lawyer like Joe Arvey, you can go to court and you can say, hey, how come they get to do that when I don't? It's that simple, and there's nothing there to stop other people. No principled reason, as Jocelyn Downey says, that you should be able to, you should withhold this privilege of ending a life unworthy of being lived. If you'll forgive me a historical reference, but there's no principled reason why you should withhold the privilege of euthanasia from these other groups. So back to the idea, is there a conspiracy? No, there's just a whole bunch of people.
Where is he getting his numbers from? He's so intelligent.
I don't know. You're going to have to ask him. Because it seems pretty obvious that the trend is upward, and it's not just a small number of people, and it's even in Oregon, where you'd say that, okay, it's only 110 people or something like that. I mean, these are people who aren't actually dying. These are people who say that their reason for, in many cases, I'm not saying in all, but reasons for taking a suicide dose are that they don't want to be a burden, or they fear loss of dignity, or they fear future pain. There was no one who actually was reported. And this is a post hoc thing. After the person dies, the doctor's supposed to put in a report. Why did they give them the poison dose in Oregon? And they had nobody who actually reported that the patient did it because of pain, because we can control pain. So they had to change it to fear of pain. So there was fear of future pain. That was the one reason. So the numbers are, of course, going up, and of course cannot be restrained to the tiny number of people actually dying. How many days is that going to be, or how many months, or how many years of actual dying? It sounds incredible. I don't want to be unfair to Dr. Downer. I think you'd have to ask him how on earth he expects us to believe that. That's all. Going back to the idea, is there this kind of vast conspiracy? No, they're just some really well-organized academics. Jocelyn Downey's just received $225,000 from the Udestin Trudeau Foundation, so that she can put in place people to report on how well how swimmingly well it's all going to work with assisted suicide and euthanasia. Can you imagine a scathingly critical report coming out of that $225,000 when she is the brains behind the assisted suicide and euthanasia movement in Canada? It's absurd, but really well-organized academics who set up conferences where they come to predetermined conclusions, but then they can quote the results of the conference consensus statement as further support when they're talking to judges. Judge Lynn Smith in Vancouver was so impressed by all the info, all of the hard numbers that the pro-assisted suicide people could give her. And she just chose to ignore other numbers that she didn't believe in, or she didn't like, or that wouldn't lead to her conclusion. So that's the academic side of it. On the ground, just Google Dying with Dignity. That's a Toronto-based organization. I mean, their organizational chart looks like the American Fifth Army or something. I mean, there's people popping up all over the place with every possible function. It's amazing. They're really well organized. And people that used to leave their money to pet hospitals or something leave their money to that group. And so they're incredibly well funded. And Moses Neimer loves them. His magazine Zoomer is the house organ of the polite euthanasia movement in Canada. It's supposed to be the Canadian Association of Retired Persons, but Moses took it over and gave it a shot in the arm and pumped it up. And now we're all Zoomers. And so we have a lot of sex, and we're really vibrant on into our 90s, and that's Moses' idea. And then we go with a flash and bang through assisted suicide and euthanasia. So well funded, very well organized, and a business model. Whereas the Euthanasia Prevention Coalition is kind of, it's doing fantastic work, but with a shoestring of a budget, a tiny handful of people helping Alex Schattenberg. This is not even David Goliath. This is sort of Goliath and an ant that's marching by. So I hope that answers your question. Anybody else? Yes.
I've had students ask me what drugs are used for assisted suicide, not necessarily euthanasia. So is it still a cocktail like this?
It's interesting that the Quebec government just put out a handbook that instructs, in a confusing way, instructs the physician, who apparently is sort of like you're holding a handbook up in one hand, right, as you approach the bedside. There's no training program or anything. This is supposed to be rolled out. I love that bureaucratic term. This is going to be rolled out on December the 10th. Right? And the doctors who do this in Quebec on December the 10th, of course, are in defiance of the Criminal Code of Canada, which does not have to change one iota until February the 6th, 2016. So the Quebec government is basically poking Ottawa in the eye with a stick. I don't know why this has never happened before from Quebec, but they seem to be wanting to assert some sort of provincial identity. I don't get it. I'm from Vancouver. I don't understand. I know there's something going on there. I don't know what it is. And their whole game is that they call it healthcare. And healthcare, as people probably know here, is a provincial responsibility. So if you call it healthcare, if you call it a treatment, then it's a provincial thing and they can do what they want, right? Whereas our challenge would be to challenge the federal government to stand up in its hind legs and act like a federal government of a nation which has a criminal code which applies equally across the nation. And to position anything that the Supreme Court says it has to do should be positioned as an exception to the criminal code as it stands. Not as a new right which completely overrides the criminal code, but as a set of circumstances which give a specific exception in this one case to a charge of murder or a charge of assisted suicide, to a charge of homicide under the criminal code. So if we can do that, if it can stay federal, if it can be a federal government and maintain control of its own criminal code, then we'll have at least uniformity over the nation, and perhaps we'll save a few more lives.
Thank you.